What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another video, and in this one, I am super excited to finally get started with these minicamp recaps, guys. As we already know, minicamp is mandatory, okay? This is not OTAs where they are optional to attend. Minicamp is really the next step in the offseason schedule, not just for the Patriots, but the entire NFL, where we're going to start to slowly ramp things up. Obviously, then we go to training camp, then we go to preseason, and then the regular season starts. Now, just a disclaimer, I am going to be coming out with two recaps. This one's going to be for June 7th, so that's technically going to be yesterday. Unfortunately, I was not able to get this video out due to work purposes. So today, you guys are going to be getting yesterday's recap along with today's recap. But let's just get right into this first day of minicamp. General notes here: guys that were absent from today's practice, again, mandatory: Kendrick Bourne, Andrew Stuber, Chasen Hines, Byron Cowart, Nick Folk, and Quinn Nordin. There's kind of been some kicker speculation going around about who this new kicker has been at New England Patriots minicamp. As for Nick Folk and Quinn Nordin missing, I'm not really putting much stock into that. Not really putting much stock into Kendrick Bourne being gone today either. I do expect him to fully be back, which for day 2 he was. The only guy I really take away from this personally is somebody like Byron Cowart, who he's really going to have to push to make this final roster. Really didn't play at all last year and is in a position where he's not guaranteed a roster spot. And if he's not going to show up to camp, training camp, OTAs, mini camp, and preseason, it could reflect poorly on what happens with him at the end when it comes to roster cutdowns. Now, guys that were there but were limited today consist of James White, Jacoby Myers, David Andrews, Marcus Jones, and Jabril Peppers. That probably explains why, Bill Belichick giving some snaps there under center to Mac Jones. Now, in general, guys, understand that this is not training camp. This isn't where you have the pads on and it's contact. That's not what this is. It's a more in-depth version of OTAs. It's more competitive than OTAs, but we're not at the point where it's as competitive as training camp. So with that being said, no pads today, no contacts, but again, still was competitive. Now, Matt Patricia was calling the offensive plays today during 11-on-11 drills, and then Joe Judge did so versus the 7-on-7 drills. Bill Belichick today worked mostly with the defense, but he was still working with the offense at times. He was being a head coach essentially today. He was being everywhere, including offense, defense, special teams, but mainly today was working with the defense. Moving on to the quarterbacks here, for 11-on-11s, Mac Jones was 11 for 12, Brian Hoyer was 3 for 7 with an interception, and Bailey Zappi was 1 for 4. 7-on-7s, Mac Jones was a perfect 14 for 14, Hoyer was 4 for 6, Zappi was 6 for 7 with an interception. From what was said, Mac Jones had a fantastic day. He completed 23 straight passes at one point. They said that this was probably his best non-padded practice as a member of the New England Patriots. As for somebody like Brian Hoyer, today was not his best day. Mentally, he was just a little bit behind everybody else, which ultimately reflected on his physical play. He just looked a little bit behind on where he usually is. Now, moving on to running backs, J.J. Taylor made a nice grab on a Mac Jones pass, and Ty Montgomery was working with the running backs and the wide receivers today, getting reps at both positions. Moving on to the wide receivers here, Devontae Parker and Mac Jones connected on a really nice deep pass. Now, Trey Nixon, who has been showing out so far throughout 2 days of mandatory minicamp, he connected with Mac Jones on what was the play of the day for a 50 to 60-yard dime with Devin McCourty and Jonathan Jones in coverage. Nixon made a nice sliding grab, and then Nixon overall had just a really good day. More specifically, with Kendrick Bourne being absent today, it seems like Trey Nixon was the guy who stepped in and took those reps. Lastly, for wide receivers here, N'Keal Harry finally does come back to practice, but reportedly, he was a loser today. He was working primarily with the third string offense, guys. He's not even working with the second team offense. He's not working with Brian Hoyer, Trey Nixon, and those guys. He's not let alone working with the first starting team offense. He is working with the third team, the third string offensive players. meaning that his quarterback is rookie quarterback Bailey Zappi. He only had 1 rep with the second tier group with Brian Hoyer. I think it's as easy to say that somebody like N'Keal Harry is as good as gone. Moving on to tight ends here, not too much about the tight ends. Jonnu Smith did have 1 drop, but Jonnu Smith and Mac Jones did connect on a highlight type of deep pass. He was involved in a healthy amount today with these tight ends. So far, from what we're hearing in these mini camps and OTAs, Jonnu Smith is being involved a lot more compared to last year. We'll just have to see if that does translate on the field when the time comes. Now, he did have a false start at one point today, and because of that, he did have to run a lap. Moving on to the offensive line here, and there's actually something really interesting that's being pointed out here. The first team offensive line from left to right, left tackle Trent Brown, left guard Cole Strange, center David Andrews, right guard Mike Onwenu, right tackle Isaiah Wynn. So Isaiah Wynn finally comes back, but the Patriots still have Trent Brown at left tackle. Isaiah Wynn finally comes back, and they kick him out to right tackle. It really looks like the Patriots are trying to get as much reps as possible for Trent Brown at left tackle. Now, obviously, no surprise here with David Andrews essentially being limited and not really being out there. James Ferentz was the guy who took over for him at center. Even with guys like Andrew Stuber, Chasen Hines not being at practice today, it makes sense that James Ferentz was that guy to step in. Now, kind of some of these backup offensive linemen, Yannick Kajust was primarily working as a left tackle today. Seems like if he's going to play anywhere on this offensive line and have a chance, it's going to be at left tackle, while Justin Herron was mainly playing at right tackle. Now, practice did end with a mini little scuffle, a little bit of a fight with rookie left guard Cole Strange diving near Matthew Judon's legs in order to grab a fumble. The offense and defense created what was described as a scrum. Moving on to the defensive line here, Josh Uche and Ronnie Perkins were the top edge rushers today. Matthew Judon worked more so today, not so much with being on the edge, but more so working with these linebackers. Speaking of linebackers, interceptions, Jelani Tavai had 1. Pass breakups, Cameron McGrone had 1. Jelani Tavai had 1. Harvey Longy had 1. And UDFA signing DeMarcus Mitchell also had 1. Anthony Jennings worked a lot with the first team defense today. Now, moving on to the cornerback position, pass breakups, Jalen Mills had 1, Jack Jones had 1, and Terrence Mitchell had 1. Jack Jones overall had a very good day, ran a lot more with the first team defense. Terrence Mitchell and Nelson Aguilar had a little slight dust up when Terrence Mitchell was very, very aggressive on a pass breakup that was going the way of Nelson Aguilar. Now, before we continue the last couple of positions, real quick, I do want to give a shout out to the sponsors of this video, betonline.ag. Our partners over at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's NBA Finals, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball scores, and the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. All you guys have to do is head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit, just using that promo code CLNS50 to get that bonus and getting into the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, moving on to safeties, not much at all here. Interceptions, Kyle Duggar had 1. And then moving on to special teams, the Patriots, like I said, did have a kicker in today, more so for a tryout because of Nick Folk and Quinn Nordine being absent. Who that guy is being speculated to be a multitude of different guys. Now, Jake Bailey had a really great day punting. The punt returners for Jake Bailey today consisted of Ty Montgomery, Malcolm Perry, Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, Miles Bryant, and Kyle Duggar. And then Tyquan Thornton saw a lot of reps today, not as a returner, but as a gunner. But that is going to be your recap for June 7th, day 1 of minicamp, mandatory minicamp. What are your guys' thoughts on the notes that were given? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to leave a big like on this video and subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. But like always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and go Pats.
world.